Robert Kiyosaki intrigued the audience at our sold-out event, Nomad Capitalist Live, recently when he told them the definition of a capitalist. It's not political. It's not based on trading stocks and bonds or buying and selling crypto. It's based on something entirely different that speaks to what we talk about here at Nomad Capitalist. I'm going to share with you Robert Kiyosaki's definition of a capitalist and why it matters so much in a global context. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of this book, available on Amazon, and the founder of Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. So, had a great event this year, Nomad Capitalist Live, Robert Kiyosaki, many other great speakers. He and I are on stage on Thursday night, and he's explaining to people the basis of his original best-selling book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He said, this is a story about a capitalist versus a Marxist. And he talked about how the school teachers, he believes 90% of them Marxists. He says they're very good people, but he says they want you to fail. They don't want you to succeed. He says, what is a capitalist? It's not about someone who buys stocks and bonds or goes to Wall Street or, has a hedge fund. He says being a capitalist is all about creating your own asset. And when he said that, he explained in the context of what he believes coming is the Greater Depression, or what we talk about, higher taxes, restrictions on freedom, what have you. You can put all that aside, and if you become a nomad capitalist, he was very enamored with our crowd, very pleased to have him there. And you can basically sidestep all the crazy stuff the government is doing right now because you go and you create your own asset. You're going where you're treated best in the world of business and with your money. Now, I own some stocks and funds and crypto and other assets that I don't entirely control. But if you're a business person, then the asset that you really do control the most is your business. In many cases, you started it from zero and you've built it up to a great number. We're here talking to the 7 and 8 and sometimes 9 and even 10-figure entrepreneurs. And it's that business that you created, that you have the control over. That is your asset that you created. And if you have the skills to do it once, you probably have the skills to do it again. That's something that's taken me a long time to learn. The idea that you are in control of your own asset. There are other factors around, but you are the one steering the ship. And for so long, I got worried, what if this month is the last month? It hasn't been that for a while now, but for many years in my 20s, I worried, what if I can't keep doing it? And I think the beauty of creating your own asset is you know that you have some control and you know that you can't keep doing it. But yet, what do most people do with their assets? They keep their prize-winning asset, the one that outperforms every other asset class, in a country that taxes them into oblivion. And it's never seemingly enough in many of the countries where you're living in. They keep it there in a country where asset protection, anyone can come and sue them at any time. It often happens. Businesses are a target from all kinds of different threats. Divorce action could wipe you out. All kinds of different things could happen to your business. And then when you've gone through all that, when you've given 30 or 40 or 50% of your money all told to the government, when you've absorbed all of the risks, all of the higher costs, all of the regulatory costs, once you've done that, whatever's left, and you're still doing well for yourself because you're a capitalist, what do? Well, in many cases, you take the money out of the company and then you pay yet again more tax. Now you put some risks on yourself, but you have the same risks with your own personal money. And so, to me, this was a great example of why not only should your business be overseas, so that your asset can be producing as much as possible. You should be lowering your tax rate. You should be minimizing risks, minimizing regulations, lowering costs. You should also be in a situation where you personally can take the money out with lower costs, lower risks, and just generally have a sense of greater peace because that is your asset. The more you control it, the fewer these outside costs and taxes and risks, the greater that asset can be. But what I also thought about is Robert was talking about to some of our VIPs. He was sharing some of the deals that he's been doing around the world that should stay inside that room. But he's doing deals around the world where there are countries that are moving more in the right direction than the country where he lives in, the United States. And by creating his own asset, having the ability to create his own asset in other countries, he can do that anywhere, right? And so he can go and find opportunities and he can go, even in some countries, which I would prefer to avoid, where, hey, the government's doing dumb stuff, but hey, if you're a capitalist, you can go and you can make money, even if you disagree with the policies. We talked, for example, about the Green New Deal. What are the opportunities we discussed for the Green New Deal, and how can you invest to play into that? I kind of prefer to keep my distance in the same way that I keep my distance from a lot of U.S. stocks and stuff like that. I just don't want the hassles, the frustrations, the anxieties, the higher tax rates potentially that could come with some of that stuff. But he talked about all the different opportunities. You can go to markets, and we've talked for years about up-and-coming markets, whether it's Colombia, whether it's Cambodia, whether it's Georgia, Armenia, Turkey. I mean, all over the world there are countries. I mean, the U.S. and other developed countries alone have enough opportunities. People can continue to start businesses in these markets. Imagine how easy it is to start a business in some of these emerging markets and the opportunities you can create there. And we've seen some people who have gone to these countries. They start an ice cream shop and they become fabulously wealthy because they created a chain of ice cream shops or a chain of whatever simple stuff that would be very hard to compete. I mean, I remember, was it 10 years ago when the yogurt craze was sweeping the United States? There was a yogurt shop in every corner, and a lot of these guys got wiped out. They paid too much, they invested too much, and a lot of them got wiped out when the craze went away. And so, that's not as much the case in these emerging markets. And so if you have the ability to create assets, if you are a capitalist, I believe personally that you are being held back in many ways in developed countries where you are being stuck in a system that is, again, way too many regulations. We had Mikhail Saakashvili, the former president of Georgia, who took the country from 127th easiest place to do business to 8th easiest place to do business within a matter of his term. And he talks about how he got some of those ideas from having friends when he lived in New York as a younger guy, and seeing just how difficult it was to open a bar. He said, you should be able to open a bar within a week. You rent the space, you get everything set up, maybe you apply for one or two things with the government, and you're in business, you're selling. But instead, in some of these places in the West, it takes months, it takes a year, it takes more than a year in some places. And he said, how do we turn Georgia into a place where you can open a bar like that? There are places out there that I believe give you a lot more power to unleash your ability to create assets. Because if you have it, you have it. And what Robert also talked about was the constant learning experience. I think a lot of people are afraid to get out of their comfort zone and afraid to go to new markets because, well, I don't really know that market. I understand do what you know. I understand the Warren Buffett and all the other perspective of just, keep pushing the button for what works. But as the world changes, the button for what works may also change with it. Whether it's just changing up in economic factors, the government gets involved and screws things up, whatever the case may be, I would want to be diversified and have exposure to different markets. And you know what? If you're doing that, you may stumble occasionally. You may do something where your business idea may not work initially, or it may not work as well as you wanted it to. Welcome to business, right? But if you can go and develop the skills and learn from your mistakes in a much easier market where business is easier, taxes are lower, regulations are easier, hiring is cheaper, you can replace people who aren't doing a good job faster, whatever the case may be, to me, that's the best use of someone's skills. And I think that whether you're investing in people like that or whether you're on the ground doing it yourself, that's not a bad idea. Now, obviously, some of us are at the stage where we already have something that is working. It is global. It does serve people in different markets. We are going where we're treated best because you're offshore. And so to me, the idea is, how do I create more assets? How do I invest in more assets that I can control? The ultimate definition of capitalism, according to Robert Kiyosaki, to me, it plays in perfectly well with go where you're treated best, because people who create their own assets are being hamstrung in legacy brain countries that don't like it, quite frankly. And you know what the problem is? The biggest problem I've talked to you about over the years is the culture. You see in the headlines, I follow headlines in the US, the UK, etc. If you can create assets, people should be saying, oh, this is a guy who's making my life easier. This is a guy who's working on how to deliver groceries to my door 12 hours faster than anyone else. This is a guy who's going to allow me to do certain things online rather than having to go and deal with bureaucracy in person, whatever the case may be. People who create assets and who create change are increasingly not welcome in the West. And yet you have guys like Mikhail Saakashvili in other countries, like Uruguay. Chile just voted down some taxes. Other countries around the world are trying to welcome people, some in a meaningless way, but many in a meaningful way, where they want you to come there and create your assets because they do not have the heft that a legacy brand does to simply rest on their laurels. They need people like you going there. And there are a lot more opportunities because there is an asymmetry, as Doug Casey would tell us at Nomad Capitalist Live, between the number of people with the talent and the number of people who want to go there. The countries that are looking to grow are looking for the talent. Perhaps your talent, perhaps your dollars. If you can create assets, I think you can do it a lot better in some of these other places That's the message from Robert Kiyosaki. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.